You're watching a classic episode of Bass Pro Shop's Outdoor World Television.
Crankbaits, one of the most productive weapons in an angler's arsenal, if you know how to use them.
That's what ripping it out of the grass did for you right there.
The correct retrieve can turn lock-jawed bass into guided missiles.
There he is.
And like most lures, crankbaits come in a wide variety of shapes, sizes, and colors. So how do you determine which crankbait will work on a given day? Stacy King, Rick Clunn, and Kevin Van Dam may have the answers to your crankbait questions. Let's start with Stacy King on Table Rock Lake in Missouri. It's springtime, and the bass are beginning to move up into shallower water.
Man, I mean, that thing really hit it hard. No wonder it's smallmouth. Boy, those things are mean. I throw that bait out there, try to make a good long cast, and then I'm just steady retrieve, just medium speed. I'm not trying to burn it. It seems like with this water cool, like I said, that just that medium retrieve's good. That bait will get down and start ticking those rocks, and that's when the bass will hit it. Man, there he is. He's stout. Not very big, but he sure is strong. He's a little bit bigger than I thought he was. Oh! As far as color selection goes, when I'm springtime crankbaiting, I pretty much let the watercolor dictate what color crankbaits I'm going to throw. If it's a real clear water situation, I tend to go with the more natural colors like the browns, the greens, and then if you sometimes even a red and clear water is good. And then if you get into a more off-colored water situation, I tend to use the chartreuse colored baits like this one and the fire tiger colors, which is basically a chartreuse and orange. That's always been a real hot color in off-colored water. So really there's not a lot of different kinds of combinations that you need as long as you stick with the natural colors in clear water and the brighter colors in off-colored water. Big old Kentucky. Come on in here. Feels like a pretty good fish right there. It's coming up. I mean, that thing does not want to quit fighting. I'm not going to try to lift her in on this light line. I'll tell you, as fat as she is, I want to get hooked my fingers. Look at the size of that thing. Yeah. Man, did he hit it hard. Man, that feels like a good fish. I'm using a 7-foot cranking stick here, and it's a fairly limber rod. It's got a good stiff butt section, but it's got a quick tip up there. It's a glass graphite combination rod, so it's not real sensitive, not like your typical graphite rod. That gives that bass a little time to inhale that lure and get it in his mouth real good before I set the hook in him. And then I've got a lot of leverage to fight the fish with, and I've got a lot of leverage to make a long cast. There's a big old spot. I mean a big one. Man. Be still, be still. I'm telling you, that is a big spot. Look at that. Look at the way she took that bait.
Whenever this man speaks, bass fishermen listen. It's not surprising, though, since Rick Clunn has won 4 Bassmasters Classics and a boatload of other accolades. Rick's got a new line of crankbaits unlike any on the market. These new baits might just be the next big thing in fishing.
I'd like to show you a new crankbait that Bass Pro Shop and I came out with last year. It's called the Orion Series. It's based on an interesting concept called hydrodynamic imaging. And essentially, it's an explanation, that term is an explanation of what the lateral line on a bass, which I think is by far its most sophisticated sense, is actually how it functions. What it does is like echolocation in a whale. It's actually drawing mental images of things that move through the water around the bass. And it's very accurate. I think a lot more accurate than we give it credit. And so one of the things I've learned in the last several years, more and more fishing's more popular. That means more pressure on the fish. And so to catch fish more consistently every day, what I've learned is you've got to be doing something different. We've actually created a bait that has a coffin bill, which is not the most common bill you'll see. It creates a much more intense deflection. Then we got the ribs on the side, which pushes more water and also creates a different image. But that's really the bait that we designed with the deep version first. It runs about 8 to 10 foot, and I like it on fishing when you're fishing creek channels, fishing the edge of deep weed lines, fishing ledges and stuff like this, that you would, river ledges and things you might be fishing in the summer. The next version we came out with was the same size but with the small coffin bill, and it's simply a shallow version. There's certain types of water during the year that we fish, like tidal waters, old river lakes that have a lot of shallow sloughs, off-color water, where fish are resident year-round. I don't care what time of the year it is, you're going to catch them shallow. And that's really what this bait is designed for. It's designed for that shallow water, off-color water type of fishing. Now, this coming year, we've actually come with the baby version. It's simply just exactly that, a smaller version of the Orion series. We're also going to come with this in a deep version. This one here will run about 3 to 3.5 foot. A deep version is going to run about 6 foot. But these are the Orion series of crankbaits that we have developed for Bass Pro Shops.
I always try to think about what lure is going to be the most efficient at covering the strike zone that I'm trying to fish.
How do you get to be the best bass fisherman in the world?
There's one.
By being good. And Kevin Van Dam is as good gets. He's well known for his prowess with a spinnerbait, but Kevin is dangerous with any bait tied to his line. We join Van Dam on the California Delta, a perfect balance of water and bass-attracting cover, and a prime spot to demonstrate the effectiveness of crankbaits.
Tell you, when you're cranking, it's so important to have a bait on the end of your rod that just runs deep enough to come in contact with the cover. If you're using a bait that dives too deep, you're really dredging the bottom, you lose a lot of the crankbait's wiggle. You take this little bait right here, and if I put it on 10-pound line, it runs about 7 feet deep. So if I'm throwing this in about 6 foot of water and it's hitting the bottom, it's just really wiggling and kicking. It has a lot of action and will trigger a lot of strikes. If I had a bigger bait on in that same depth of water that runs, say, 12 or 14 foot, it just kind of slides and skids along the bottom. Crankbaits have their best action when they're hitting the bottom almost at their maximum depth. So I like to have several cranking rods that have different sizes of line on them to help control it. So if I put 20-pound test on the same crankbait, it'll only run about 4.5 or 5 foot deep, so I can keep it up a little bit. So I'll have a couple of rods with different sizes of line, and I'll have a couple of different baits tied on to go to different depths, and that'll cover me. I'm always looking just to have that bait, just getting down to the bottom, just to contact the cover. Like right here, I'm cranking a grass edge. If I had a bait that dove too deep, it's just going to be constantly buried in the grass. This little bait like this, I can put it out there, and I've got like 17-pound test line on. I can have real good feel with it. When it hits the grass, I can just rip it free, and that's what triggers a lot of strikes. When you hit something on the bottom, that bait's wiggling, it bounces off, deflecting. That's what triggers those fish when it's high and bright like this to hit that bait. Good fish. Good fish. Oh, he's not hooked real good though. Oh, I got another hook in him that way. That's why you like those real sharp hooks. There's a chunker there. Oh, yes! Look at the healthy fish that is there. Good fat belly. Now I switched to a Series 5, and this one here it's a chartreuse one, but what I like to do is I use some of that Spike It spray, dye spray that's used for worms, and I'll spray them with me. I like to carry 3 or 4 colors of that spray along with me, and if I don't have the exact right color crankbait, or I want to try something a little bit different, I'll spray some chartreuse on it, or spray some orange or blue. It comes in a bunch of different colors, but to try to match these crawdad patterns, I like using the red and the orange like that. You can see this chartreuse bait turns into a real nice shiny orange, and it works real well. I love it for a crawdad pattern type lake. Oh, there. Way in there behind that stuff. That's a chunky bass there too. Pretty. Always around that cover. Boy, if you hit something with that crankbait, bounce it off, be ready.
When it comes to covering water and triggering bites, it's hard to beat a crankbait. On the tournament trail, our pros have proven just how productive these baits can be. So how far do you want to take your crankbait fishing?